No one in Hollywood expected it. The industry was quiet, moving through another predictable awards season, when suddenly the trades published a headline that detonated across the globe. Sam Heughan Caitríona Balfe lead massive 2026 comeback project. Within minutes, social media melted. Fans who had mourned the end of Outlander could barely find the words to process what they were seeing. Sam and Caitríona, together again, but this time on the biggest stage Hollywood had offered them in years. The announcement came from 3 major studios simultaneously, sending a clear message. This wasn't a rumor or a leak. It was real, and more shocking than the reunion itself was the revelation that the project had been quietly in development for almost a year. Critics who once assumed Sam and Caitríona would go their separate ways suddenly had to rewrite their predictions. Their comeback wasn't just a return, it was a takeover. In the official press release, the studios described the project as an international epic designed to redefine the 2026 box office landscape. Though plot details were locked under strict confidentiality, insiders hinted at a blend of romance, mystery, and high-stakes adventure, a genre combination that had been dying for years. Hollywood needed something bold, one executive said, and these two were the only ones who could carry it. For fans, the nostalgia hit instantly. People began flooding Twitter with old GIFs of Jamie and Claire, emotional edits, tributes, and reaction videos. The hashtags #SamKate2026 and #HollywoodComeback took over globally within an hour. Even celebrities chimed in, expressing shock and excitement about the pair's return. The world hadn't seen a fandom react with such intensity since the early days of streaming giants. But behind the scenes, the story was even more unbelievable. After Outlander wrapped, both Sam and Caitríona had stepped back from major spotlight roles. They focused on smaller, more personal projects. Many assumed their careers would diverge permanently. Some thought Caitríona would remain in auteur-driven films, while Sam might lean into action or romantic comedies. But unbeknownst to everyone, Hollywood had been quietly weaving them back together. According to multiple insiders, the moment that sealed the deal happened during a private meeting in 2025. A major director, whose name the studios still refused to reveal, had flown to London with a script in hand. He insisted that the film could only work if Sam and Caitríona starred together. They have a connection actors train their entire lives to achieve, he said. But they were simply born with it. Sam reportedly laughed when he first heard the pitch, assuming it was an exaggeration. Caitríona thought it was a prank. But after reading the script, both actors were stunned. The story demanded emotional depth, maturity, and the kind of on-screen chemistry that felt lived in. All qualities they had already proven 100 times over. Hollywood didn't just want them, it needed them. As news of the project spread, discussions erupted across fan forums. Some viewers celebrated the reunion, thrilled to see their favorite duo back in action. Others expressed concerns that the world would never separate Sam and Caitríona from Jamie and Claire. Would this new film be compared unfairly to Outlander? Would their legacy overshadow everything they attempted afterward? The debate grew so heated that entertainment journalists began writing entire think pieces on the subject. But the biggest twist in the story was still hidden, until an anonymous source revealed that the film had nearly been cancelled. Just months into pre-production, the studio reportedly pulled funding due to internal restructuring and fears the project was too risky. Scripts were shelved, deals were paused. The comeback almost never happened. Hollywood almost lost its 2026 headline. Then Sam and Caitríona stepped in. They personally contacted producers, rallied behind the creative team, and refused to let the film die. Their commitment shocked the studios. It wasn't just about reuniting. It was about believing in a story powerful enough to revive an entire genre. Their passion revived negotiations, and within weeks, the project was greenlit again, this time with an even bigger budget. By the time the world found out, the machine was already in motion. Sam had begun physical training for an intense new role, while Caitríona was deep in workshops for emotionally demanding scenes. Both were preparing not just for a comeback but for a transformation. And Hollywood finally understood. This wasn't nostalgia. It was evolution. What no one knew, not the fans, not the press, was why they fought so hard for this film. And when that truth surfaced, it shifted everything the world thought they understood about the comeback. But that revelation was still waiting in the shadows, ready to explode next. When the truth finally surfaced, it wasn't through a press release or a studio announcement. It came from a quiet, unexpected interview, one where Sam and Caitríona appeared together for the first time since the news broke. They sat side by side, relaxed yet undeniably emotional, as though carrying something far deeper than a simple Hollywood comeback. The interviewer leaned forward, sensing the weight in the room. "Why this project? Why now?" she asked. Sam exchanged a glance with Caitríona before answering. "Because we weren't done telling stories together," he said simply. It wasn't about recreating Outlander or chasing past success. It was about evolution, about stepping into roles that reflected everything they had learned after a decade on-screen. Caitríona added, "This script felt like a mirror, one we couldn't ignore." Their honesty struck a chord that echoed around the world. What no one knew was that both actors had struggled privately with their careers after Outlander ended. Not because of lack of opportunity, but because nothing felt meaningful enough. "When you play characters that change people's lives," Caitríona explained, "it becomes hard to choose what comes next." Sam nodded, revealing that he turned down several major roles because they lacked purpose. "I didn't want noise," he said. "I wanted something that mattered." Then came the twist that stunned the fandom. The reason they agreed to the project wasn't fame, money, or nostalgia. It was a promise they made years earlier. During season 5, after an exhausting night shoot in the Highlands, Sam and Caitríona sat on a hill watching the sunrise. They talked about the future, about fear, about what life after Outlander might look like. And in that quiet moment, they promised each other that if the right project ever came along, one that challenged them and honored their growth, they would reunite. "That script," Caitríona said, "was that promise calling us back." The director had unknowingly written something that resonated with a pact only the two actors understood. It wasn't just a film. It was closure, rebirth, and destiny woven into one opportunity. Fans felt chills as the story spread across social media, and the comeback finally made emotional sense. Of course, the journey wasn't smooth. Behind the scenes, the studio initially doubted the decision to cast them together again. Executives feared the world would only see Jamie and Claire, not two new characters with new complexities. Some even suggested separating them to avoid comparisons. "We fought that," Sam said, his tone firm. "We weren't afraid of our history." There was also tension with certain directors who believed pairing them was too safe, arguing the industry needed fresh faces, not established duos. Caitríona spoke candidly about how those comments stung. "It felt like they wanted to erase everything we built," she admitted. But instead of walking away, Sam and Caitríona attended extra workshops, chemistry tests, and intensive acting sessions to prove they had evolved. Their persistence paid off during a private test screening in early 2026. Only a handful of executives, critics, and investors were invited. When the lights dimmed and the first scene played, the room fell into stunned silence. Their performances weren't echoes of Jamie and Claire. They were raw, layered, modern, and electric in a completely new way. By the end of the screening, several executives were wiping tears. One critic whispered, "This isn't a comeback. This is history." The response changed everything. The film was immediately upgraded to a tentpole release, with expanded international distribution. Merchandising deals, festival invitations, and international campaigns rolled in overnight. Hollywood had no choice but to admit what fans always knew. Sam and Caitríona were not just actors, they were a phenomenon. During the final minutes of the interview, the emotional core of the comeback finally emerged. Sam confessed that he hadn't felt truly inspired since Outlander ended, and this project reminded him why he loved storytelling. Caitríona revealed she nearly left Hollywood entirely after a difficult personal year but found hope again through the script, and through Sam's unwavering support. "He pulled me back," she said softly. Sam looked at her then, with a warmth that transcended years of professional partnership. "We lift each other," he replied. It was simple but powerful, the kind of moment that made the interviewer pause, knowing she was witnessing something deeper than promotion or publicity. As the interview wrapped, the world finally understood the truth behind their comeback. It wasn't strategy. It wasn't fan service. It wasn't a calculated Hollywood move. It was two artists choosing each other again, not as Jamie and Claire, but as Sam and Caitríona. And their final words sent a shiver across every timeline and newsfeed. This comeback wasn't planned, it was destiny.